tonight. I was hoping to clean the body there, but I just couldn't be bothered in the end, getting all dirty and mucky. So I've been doing some gentle things like 3D printing little gaskets to go under the gauges. I'm just doing the ammeter now. I did one to go under the switch. They're just TPU plastic. That switch top is still a bit mangled, but I think it'll work. And I was looking for bulbs today, so I need to get 12-volt bulbs. I thought it would be easier to find 12-volt bulbs in New Zealand. The stop and tail lamp bulbs you can definitely get, but the headlamp bulb I haven't found anywhere that actually sells those. It's a BA15D body, and it's I think it's called a British pre-focus bulb, something like that. Yeah, I can't find any local sources for those, so I'll have to get those from overseas anyway. What else? We actually went and got the aluminium today. So 3 more sheets of aluminium with a sheet of steel on it to make sure it gets really scratched. And I picked up some tube out of the scrap metal bin while I was there. I may look at using that to reinforce the wheeling machine. And I've also put the rubber handles on here. And I put the rubber gear knob on, and I also straightened the shaft. I don't know why somebody had bent it up the way they had. If they'd bent it and it looked okay, it would have been fine, but the way it was bent, it was just all mangled. So I've also mangled it, making it straight again, but I think it looks better. And then I realized afterwards I shouldn't have put the knob on quite yet, because that might be hard to get in place. Because this is really awkward to get to when it's in the bike. I think you can just do it, because that's how I managed to get it off. But this thing here has little flats on it, and those flats aren't actually to stop the nut from spinning. They're just flats that have been machined on that little cast piece so that the nut and the bolt have flat surfaces. But what I could actually do is file one of those a little bit deeper and make a custom nut so that the nut is captive. Well, not captive, but it won't be able to spin. It'll be up against that shoulder. It needs to be a nut that's slightly bigger, probably a custom size. It doesn't have to be a hex nut, of course. It could be square. So I might do that, and then you can, if you just sort of stick that nut on there with a bit of grease and get that top bolt through, you can get to that one. You can actually get to that one through the battery box, and then I can just take the handle off, feed it through the body, which will be much easier. Cleaned up the selenium rectifier. That's going to bolt back on. What I think I will actually do is, when I bolt that back in place, that goes through the body like that, I'll make a little metal tab that comes off there. That's where this bolts, and I don't know which direction, wherever there's room, and that's where I'll mount the regulator so that the wiring all goes to the same place. In terms of the wiring, I was looking it up today. You can't buy looms for this. The original wiring was all just black cable, as far as I can tell, with these little coloured sleeves on the ends. So this is all original, but it's rubber insulation, and some of it's gone very brittle. So I won't reuse that. It's got these little tabs, which are earthing tabs. I think there should be another one of those. There's 2 of those, but I can make up new ones of them. And I will get these same style bullets. These are the original ones. They're just Lucas style bullets. And the good thing is I should be able to reuse a lot of these connectors. There's a few of them there. So there's another one. There's one. Another one there. Another one there. Yep, and more. So I should be able to figure out something with those. And I'm pretty sure I can buy those locally, and the bullets. You solder them all together. So that should be good. I'm just waiting for that last print now. The other thing I need to 3D print in rubber, these just reminded me, is the mounting. There's similar sorts of washers as these ones that mount the radiator. So you can see the remains of them here. So there is a flat washer. I'm not sure if that's got a shoulder. I think maybe not. You can see these ones are all just soft and horrible. But then there's another washer that goes in there with the sides cut off to fit into that bracket. I can just print those. And I still need to do the handlebars. I think I'm almost at the point where I can order the bits I need from the UK. I'm pretty sure I know everything I need. I haven't checked if they've got light bulbs. They might have light bulbs, which would be good, because then I'm not paying for 2 lots of shipping. I did order new ball bearings. The ball bearings themselves are dirt cheap. So I ordered, they come in packs of 20. I think they were $5 each for a pack of 20. I ordered 2 of those. And then I think the shipping was like $12 on top of that. Something like that. As always, the cost of shipping things here is expensive, but and that's local. But it's still probably cheaper than me having to drive somewhere to actually get some at a time when the shops are open, because these are sold by engineering shops, which are only open during the week. You can't go on the weekend. I'm not even sure where the nearest one is. What else did I buy today? I've been buying a few bits and pieces. I've got an O-ring kit coming, so I can replace the O-ring between the carburetor and the inlet stub. I have small fuel filters coming. I had to get really small ones that fit on 5mm hose. This is 5mm 3/16 hose. Hopefully they shouldn't gunk up, but I definitely want a filter in there. There's something else as well. Various bits and pieces are on order. And yeah, my neighbour who helped me with the aluminium, I showed him the bike and started it up for him, and it pretty much started the first try. It's pretty easy to start. So not too much today. I need to get back on the Riley. I did actually film some of the stuff around with the guards, so you might have noticed the guards have been wired. The little curve on the front is done. I did film. I didn't film me doing it, but I filmed talking about it. But that was a week or so ago now. I don't think I'll even bother uploading that. I've done so much on the guards. There's nothing new there, but there is some progress. I need to remake the brackets now that mount it all. Tonight I have I replaced the little paper washer I had between the carb and the inlet with a proper O-ring. I think that should work fine. I had to buy a kit to get those, but I've been meaning to get one of them in for a while. I've put the gauges back into the little top panels. I've given them a gentle cleanup, but nothing too mad. There's my 3D printed little rubber gasket in there. I've just basically cleaned the glass. I haven't even taken the gauge apart. I think it works. I'm not going to touch it. Ammeter should be working a lot better now, even though the needle's looks a bit bent, but at least it's pointing in the right place. And the switch is all back together. It's reasonably flat. It's definitely had something happen to it where maybe it got petrol on it or something. I don't know, but it's definitely kind of melted a bit. But with a bit of a cleanup, you can actually read it now. I think it says park EIGN, which is emergency ignition, off, head and CH, which I guess is charge, head and then pilot. So it's in the off position at the moment. That should all go back on quite nicely. It's much more cleaned up. Switch is all cleaned up. Should be fine. I also machined from literally a scrap of brass. It's either brass or bronze. I think it might be bronze, not brass. Like bronze bushing material. It was literally a couple of centimeters long, about an inch long. And I drilled out the holes in the handlebars were what was flogged out. So the little shoulder bolts aren't worn at all. They're 1/4 inch. That one's not pushing down all the way, but I'll figure that out. So they're 1/4 inch, and the holes were well flogged out, which is why the handles were all floppy. So I drilled those out to 3/8, which is pretty big, but still plenty of room there. And I was able to machine a bush that was 3/8 outside diameter with a 1/4 inch hole through the middle. I'm going to ream the hole once the Loctite's set. So I did manage to blow my 3/8 dimension just slightly, so they were a little bit loose fit in there. But I used some of the Loctite bearing retainer. These aren't going to spin or anything, they just need to be held in there. And the clamps and things are just so that they stay flat or flush within the thing, because it takes a little while for the Loctite to go off. I didn't want them sliding out of the holes. That's why there's little clamps and little bits of metal, just to make sure they stay in the right place till the Loctite goes off. So once that's all set, I'll probably leave it till tomorrow. It doesn't actually take that long, but overnight it'll definitely be cured. I will ream out the middle 1/4 inch, and that should make the handles less floppy. They were all over the place, and that would just make the bike awful to use. I did clean them as well, because I couldn't even get the little cable things out. So now I've cleaned them up. That's why there's tape on there, so I don't lose the little piece that pushes in there that the end of the cable clips into. I literally had to whack one out with a screwdriver. It was so gummed up in there, so I gave those a good clean, because I think you want the controls to be nice, even if the rest of it looks a bit sort of manky, but the rest of it's all pretty good. And I think that's all I can do for tonight. So, nice evening, a little bit windy. I did another test start off the bike today, started straight up, so that's really good. And I actually came out at lunchtime to check the handle bushes that I made. The Loctite had set, and so I put the handles back on. This is the clutch. It's a little bit tight, that one, but the clutch has got quite a strong spring on it, so I think that will free up okay. And all the rattle is gone out of these handles now. This is the front brake. That's a bit freer, but again, there's a little bit of movement in there still. And one of them, this one did have a bit of wear on the actual shoulder bolt. That's probably why there's that movement there, but I don't think that's too bad. It's way better than it was, so I think that should be fine. So handlebars are done, and I'm going to scrub the inside of the frame, because there's in some places 1/4 inch build up of grime. This, I've sprayed it down with some degreaser. You can see how thick it is here, and I think it'll be better. I want it clean. I'm not going to paint it or anything, but I just do want to get all that grime off, because it just makes working on the bike horrible, and I don't think it adds any value necessarily. So we'll give that a good scrape and a good clean, and the outside will just get the grime off it. Basically warm soapy water is probably the most I'll use on it. It actually comes up reasonably well. I mean, the front came up pretty well just cleaning the grime off it. So like I say, maybe some people like the grimy look, but you can always just add more dirt. You know, if you really wanted to, you rub grease and road muck all over it, but I prefer it to be clean so I can see what state it's in, and it's not horrible to work on You know, it's not likely to catch fire if the electrics go wrong, that sort of thing. So that's what I'm going to do now, try and get that cleaned up. And then the bearings are on the way. I just bought all new bearings, they're so cheap. I just bought a whole set, I think about 40 of them, which should be enough to replace all of them. I think it's 19 each side. And fuel filters on the way. And then I think I can start assembling it. And the only things I really need to order through the spares at the moment are the cables. The spares don't have the little washer, the little dust cap that goes on top of the bearings. They have a machined version, but I think I proved I was able to make one that worked perfectly well just with bits of scrap, so I'll just make my own to replace the one I took out of the other spare wheel, which unfortunately isn't a spare wheel for this bike because the later bikes have different size wheels. So I'm going to clean up the body now, I think. This is looking much cleaner. Just on the inside, you can see where there's been a repair there. Someone obviously gas welded it and it's rusted all around the metal. I still have to figure out how I'm going to treat all of that, but I don't want to paint it. There's a bit of grime there. It's mostly coming off pretty easily, but the other thing I've noticed is I already knew one side was dented, but you can see this isn't straight, so I'm going to need to try and straighten that out. I think the best way will be to take it off, actually unbolt it, straighten it out, bolt it back on. I think if I try to bend it on here, it's going to bend the body. I tipped out my dirty water. It's a bucket of clean water. I did realise if I don't want to use tank water, we've got a stream next door, but I went over and had a look and the stream is actually pretty low, too low to sort of dip a bucket down into. But then I remembered we've got our backup tank there, which is 1,000 litre IBC, so that's quite a few buckets of water. There's more than enough there to finish wiping this down. So I think I'll get that front off now, straighten that, put that back, and then clean the outside. I've straightened the front frame where it was bent here. Must have taken quite a knock to bend that in, but again, just a piece of tube, bend it out. I think that's pretty straight now, straighter than it was. Since I have this off, I'm going to put this through the parts washer, give it a clean, just get the grime off it. I'll bolt it back on the bike. This is the battery bracket. I just need to get the shape of that a little bit closer to what it should be. And these are the little aluminium plates that go where the rear shock adjusters go. These were all sort of mangled. I've actually run them, since they're sort of mangled already, I put them through the stretcher, through the shrinker actually, where they've been stretched out and shrunk them down a bit. You can sort of see the marks on there, but given the overall state of the bike, I don't think that's going to be too noticeable. So they should go back on pretty nicely. And the body is clean. You can really see this repair here now. This had obviously been all torn up. There's a few streaks on it, and I thought that might have been something I'd done, because I saw that on the front as well, but I hadn't used anything but soapy water on this. I was even careful with the degreaser to make sure I didn't get any degreaser on the outside, just on the inside, and it still has those streaks. So I think they were there before. When I was cleaning the grime off, they seem to be underneath the grime, so I'm not sure what's caused that. Maybe petrol spilling? That would make sense around there. The transfers are all still in place, which is good. It's relatively clean. I've cleaned up the races for the steering bearings when I get those, and The inside of it is nice and clean. It's interesting because you can see what the original paint was like here, if the light was better. But because this is covered by the number plate thing, this paint is pretty much original, and it looks quite different to the paint on the outside where it's all been worn and weathered. If we look underneath, I think we'll have to do this inside. The light's a bit too contrasty out here. I have straightened that front piece, so that's a lot better. And the good thing is today it's quite warm, but it's reasonably windy, so it's drying it all off quite nicely. And it only took, I think, 1 bucket of water in the end. Soapy water with a jug full of boiling water in the top just to make it warm. So the trick is now, what do I coat it with to protect it, stop it rusting? I was thinking probably just Penetrol. So this stuff is it's basically a little bit of solvent, and it's linseed oil. It's not boiled linseed oil, it's not raw. It's got another name that I can never remember, but it's been processed in some way. So maybe that. I just need to be a little bit careful over those transfers. It might be enough. I know when I first rebuilt my MGB many years ago, a lot of the English forums talk about wax oil, which is another thing I think people use to preserve metals or the underside of cars. So maybe something like that. It's like an oily, waxy coating. I could rub it all down with fish oil, but then it would smell funny. I'm not sure what the best thing to use is. So if anyone's got any suggestions, let me know. Speaking of the MG, I had the black tub with the water in it sitting on this little dolly thing, and I realized I think I built this 25 odd years ago, and it's one of those things that's just always around, follows you house move to house move, and is incredibly useful. I originally made that for when I was rebuilding the engine in the MGB. I had the engine sitting on it so I could roll it around. The bike, I tried just before starting it, no throttle, little bit of choke, fired straight up, like literally first pull. So the engine on this I think is settling down and settling in quite nicely. I'll check the oil levels and things like that. It's not been leaking anything at all, which is good. It hasn't really had a chance to get up to full temperature yet, but we'll see when I get it all back together. So I just need the bearings and I can start reassembling the front end. I need to do the wiring, and I need the throttle cables and things from the UK, and I also need to fix these. Try and repair these, and I'm still trying to figure out the best way to do it. This one isn't too bad. I think I can probably find where the welds are, grind the welds through or cut through the welds, and then straighten it all out and just put the two bits back together and do a little weld along the edge, TIG weld, just to put it back together. This one in particular, this is the side that's been crashed. Yeah, that's the right hand side, that's the side that had all the damage. So, but I think if I can get those two halves apart, that won't be too hard to straighten out. The seat can go back on, these covers can go back on, the gauges are all done. I'm waiting for the regulator as well. That was the other thing I'd ordered, a couple of regulators. I think they're coming from China. So I bought two in case one breaks, but they're dirt cheap, dirt common. It's like a really standard little part. So I don't think they're very big as well, so you can always carry a spare, but I think they should be easily reliable for this. I did try measuring the diodes in this, but I wasn't getting very good results, so I'm not sure if this is actually still working or not. Handlebars, I do need to clean up the little switch which is the high beam, low beam and horn button. And I need to do the seat cover. I haven't done any of the sewing stuff yet. I think the first thing I'll do is try and make a replica of this, just because that should be pretty easy and it'll give me the practice with the sewing machine and the how to sew the vinyl and all that kind of thing. Should be able to deconstruct that and make something that more or less approximates it. Fuel filters are on the way, but we're getting very close. And I really just want to get this done and get it out of the way so I can start focusing on the Riley again, because that's also very close, considering I've been working on it for years and I'm at the almost done end, so I just need to get motivated on it again. Here's a look at it in better light. This is what I mean about the original paint, and you can see how bad the rest of it is. The transfers are good. I need to do that weld, a couple of spots of weld on there just to stop that crack getting worse. You can see where the panniers are sitting, just in the difference in paint, how the paint's been protected there. So I might put a little bit of glue or double-sided tape or something under that. I'm just worried that that's sort of bent up and sticking up, so I don't want anything to catch it. Rip that off. That's the original frame and engine number, which match. But yeah, it still looks used, shall we say. So I think that'll be fine. And the pannier box. Now that I've got more aluminium, I might remake the insides of these from aluminium, because these are really heavy. Go on there. Like that. So I've got more than enough aluminium now to remake those, just to make them a bit lighter, because power to weight isn't great on this bike. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to clean it up any more than that. That'll look fine. And I just realized something that should have been obvious to me when I made these boxes. To go inside the panniers, I don't need a full box because the back of them is metal, so that's going to hold the shape of the back. I just need a sort of folded U piece that slides in, and it's just going to hold the sides and the front straight, so that makes it even easier. And I've got enough on that piece of aluminium there to easily do that. Tonight after work, I've been doing a few things. My voltage regulators arrived and I was playing with them, and these were dirt cheap, like a couple of dollars each. So I bought a couple of them because I want to see how they work. And playing around with it, they don't work the way I would expect them to work. So I don't think they're very good. It's definitely not a full wave rectifier. It definitely wasn't regulating the voltage. It could just be that I bought the wrong cheap ones. It's basically sitting in a thing full of acetone. I want to see if that will dissolve the potting so I can see what the circuitry is. But Big Clive actually did a teardown of one of those about 4 years ago, and I think it must be the same as this one. And it's kind of weird, the circuitry. So I have checked the original selenium rectifier, and this is dead, which isn't unexpected. These are known to fail. They're old. This is really old tech, and they don't last. So I have ordered a modern bridge rectifier, and I'm just going to replace this with that. This is the wiring diagram for the bike. This is from one of the original manuals, and this shows the rectifier here. I'm just going to replace that with the bridge rectifier. So all the wiring is basically exactly the same. This is really good because it actually also shows you all the connections. And I did order some bullet connectors. It works out that it's cheaper for me to buy those from the UK than it is to buy them locally. Even the postage for that from the UK is cheaper than the postage locally. So I bought a little set, and I think it's like 60 connectors and 10 each of the double and single joiners. And the postage for that from the UK was £6, which works out to be about $12–15 New Zealand. That's how much I pay locally for anything I get sent here, because technically we're rural, even though we're a kilometre off the main highway. So I've ordered those from the UK, and then I remembered I've actually got a set already that I got for the Riley, so I can use those. So I've got all the connectors now for the wiring, and I think I may end up using somewhere here. I did have a whole bunch of, what's this? Covered in spiders. This may be thick enough to use. This is actually trailer wire, which I got really cheap. It was like a clearance item at Super Cheap or somewhere like that. So I have to see what size that wire is, if that's going to be thick enough. I can't even see the end of it at the moment. Or else I'll just have to get some wire, buy some wire to do it. So that'll be the wiring and the regulator. And I thought I better actually check that the generator works. So I hooked that up tonight just to a meter measuring AC, fired the bike up. It fired up straight away. Bit of choke, didn't even need any throttle. Basically first pull and it started. So that's running really well. And yes, the coils in the generator are good. They're generating, giving me voltage. So if it's, whether or not there's enough power current there to charge the battery, we'll see, but I think it'll be fine. I am going to do an order to the spares for clutch cable, front brake cable, a couple of spare head gaskets, the Miller switch knob, and I don't think they'll have a throttle cable that suits, because this isn't an original throttle. This is a Doherty one instead of an Amel one, I think. So I'm not sure if the cables the club have will actually suit this. They're having a look for me. I sent them all the dimensions. But I did find locally I could get a universal cable kit for about $35, which is pretty cheap. And I can make something that will work. And I've got the lathe, so if I need to turn down the little nipples or make my own out of brass, I can do all of that. So I think I can make a throttle cable. This one works, but it's getting a bit manky. So that will sort that out. And the body, I decided I would just use Penetrol to protect it. And over the course of the evening, I've been putting coats and coats and coats of that on the inside. There's a couple of runs I need to just clean up. And same with the front guard. That's this here. So you can see what sort of finish that leaves. It leaves it a little bit glossy, a little bit shiny, but it's not too bad. It comes up reasonably well. Yeah, I need to wipe it down with my rag. I've got the rag flat, just so it doesn't spontaneously combust. And I use the brush to get it all into the seams. I also did the weld repair here. I just put a little spot of weld on the end of the crack and a bit of weld on the crack on the inside of the guard lip. Ground that back. I put a little bit of black zinc rich paint on it so it doesn't stand out as really obvious. And yeah, like I say, it's got about at least 5 coats of Penetrol on the inside now, and once that's dry, it'll dry overnight. I can flip this up the other way. I have the bearings, the ball bearings for the steering head, so there should be 19 either side. I think there are 20 each in these containers. And the other thing I ordered from the UK was bulbs, because I can't get them here. But then I remembered, or it turns out that the the bulb I need for the headlamp is the same as the headlamp bulb in the Riley, and I had a spare. So that will get me up and running on the bike, and I've ordered more spares from the UK for those bulbs, 12-volt bulbs. And I think that's everything on the bike for now, so I'll probably upload this tonight. Tomorrow is the weekend, and there's one of the annual swap meets at the town just north of us, about 20-25 minutes away. So I'm going to head up to that tomorrow, see what I can find. That's where I ended up getting this Coventry Climax generator from a couple of years ago now, I think it was. But of course I don't have the Land Rover anymore, so I can't really get anything big like that, which is probably a good thing. But I'll keep an eye out for any useful tools, old vintage carburetors, old vintage bike bits, gauges, regulators, things like that. Anything that could be useful. So I really want to get back on the Riley. The other thing I will do this weekend is make up those new pannier boxes from the aluminium. Now I know I've got plenty more aluminium to do the door skins on the Riley and the bonnet. But, yeah, this is getting... I should be able to start reassembling this pretty soon.